Welcome to Channel 24. Michael Sheitelman, political analyst, is joining me now. Michael, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting, and good evening.
So in Moscow, an air defense system has been installed on the roof of one of the city's tallest business centers. And, you know, when you look at the video, it was lifted onto the building by a military helicopter. The story caused, hysteric and panic among Russians, not only because air defense is now being placed in the heart of the capital, but also because of where exactly it appeared, in a densely populated urban area next to residential buildings, next to school and military facilities. And most likely, this is a Panzer air defense system. Michael, what is your take on everything? I mean, do you think that Russians are basically protecting by local resident civilians as cover?
Well, it is not about to protect civilians. That is to protect all the sky of Moscow. By the way, this building is located on the northern part of Moscow, and it is the direction to the main airport, to Sheremetyevo Airport. So generally, this is the direction the Ukrainian drones they are most successful. In last attack, it was a week ago, two weeks ago, the last attack in Moscow. The most successful, it was the attack from different directions towards Moscow, but only in northern direction it was very successful. So they increased density of the counter drone systems and counter missile system exactly on this very important direction, where we found Ukrainian forces found the hole in this general defense. But also it looks like panic, really, because a couple of years ago, first time they put the same system on the roof of military headquarters of Russian Federation, the main military headquarters, like local Pentagon. And it was something reasonable, let's say. That is Pentagon, and you put the air defense system on the roof of Pentagon. So it is reasonable. But when you put this on the roof of office building, where the civilian citizens, they live there and they stay there. And now what you are doing? This building from this moment, this is military target. From this moment, this roof is officially a legal military target. And what you make this service to the local residents that from this moment, they are not officially the target, but the roof is target. And you should work in the building. The roof of this building is legal military target.
I've heard actually from some people in Crimea, occupied by Russia, Crimea, they are living on the 9th floor, and that's the final floor of their building. And on the roof, there are installed air defense systems. And when the drones are coming through the Black Sea towards them, they are hearing, above their head, like, like it's working. It's insane, to be honest, Michael. I'm still not stopping to be surprised by those decisions in Moscow.
Yeah, but there's a big difference. Crimea is the front line de facto. Well, this is the real front line. And Russians who stay in Crimea, they are in front line, Russian population. Okay, we have also Ukrainian population, our population in Crimea, and they are occupied and occupied territory. This is the different people, absolutely. But Russians in this place, they feel like occupiers, and they are soldiers, or also if they are formally civil citizens, they are not civil citizens. They are civil citizens on occupied territories. So they also don't have any rights of civil population. By the international law, they don't have any defense as a civil population when they're Russian citizen who lives in occupied territories. So Moscow case is absolutely different. Moscow is in the heart of not front line, absolutely not front line, and most safe place in Russian Federation at all, because Ukrainian drones now cover, let's say, 80% of Russian population, 30% of Russian territory, and 80% of Russian population. But Moscow was the most defensed place till last weeks. And now it looks like Russians, they really fear from that. I mean, political fear, not the physical fear, but political fear from Ukrainian attacks on the center of Moscow city.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Michael. That could you imagine that Russian capital are finally realizing that the war can reach them like every possible day. That all the Moscovites, they are on pins and needles, that Ukraine could hit them at every possible moment. So yeah, that's a good news and nice to know. But at the same time, you don't have to be a military expert to realize if the air defense are putting on the residential building or something like that, they withdraw the air defense from some other places, right? So they took it away.
Well, yes, this is the old tendency. Then Russians, they removed a lot of air defense systems from all the cities near Ukraine. And I mean all the Black Sea cities like Tuapse, Novorossiysk, Kanapa, and all the Baltic Sea cities like Primorsk and the most important harbors, the harbors which the Russians sell the oil. And this is the reason why Ukrainian strikes last year, they became to be very, very successful. And we destroyed a lot of Russian oil refineries because Russians, they removed all the air defense and they put it on the Moscow city. It happened not today, but during last couple of years. Every day, by the way, every day, dozens of Ukrainian drones, they strike Moscow every day. But before last time, all of these drones, they shoot down. All of these drones, they shoot down. But that was the part of strategy, to shoot a drone to Moscow. And in this case, Russian, they just take all the defense system, air defense system to Moscow. That is first. Second, they use a lot of missiles, and now we have a deficit of missiles. At the beginning of the war, they had a proficit of air defense missiles, proficit, and they used counter missiles to strike Ukrainian cities instead of using it for defense. But now we use it all of these missiles for defense, and they have deficit, same like Ukraine has a deficit of these missiles. So that was the strategy during last couple of years, and it worked. And step by step, it became to be the very defensed place, Moscow, but all the other Russian territory became to be not defensed. Which is the good news for Ukrainian military.
Michael, I cannot avoid one thing that I've heard on your YouTube channel today. And by the way, I'm really recommend for those who understand Russian and Ukrainian, subscribe on this one, on your YouTube channel. So you were analyzing a Russian propaganda press, which calls Moskovsky Komsomolets. I don't know how to translate it properly. So, and the headline was so, I don't know, telling, I would say. So, striking defeats when a geopolitical loss could be more useful than a brilliant victories. And the message of this article is like the Russians are being told that the defeat is not necessarily a catastrophe. What is your take on that article? Do you think that this is a very, this is a good example that in their society they are being prepared for something?
It is more than a good example. I believe this is the top of new trend. The trend of last quarter, let's say last 3 months. The trend is that we see the opposition inside the Russian Federation and opposition to President Putin. And this is not democratic opposition, not liberal opposition. This is right wing opposition, the Nazi and fascist opposition. This is very interesting trend. This is not people who says you are not right that you started the war against Ukraine. They said you lost the war against Ukraine and you lost the negotiation process to President Trump, and you lost economy, etc., etc., etc. So these people, they are absolutely new political force inside Russian Federation. And these people for us is the chance for the change of regime in Russian Federation. Okay, new regime will not be friendly to Ukraine, but at least it will stop the war. They understand that Russia lost the war, and this is let's say, nearest first target, to stop the war. The next target will be negotiate peace process. And this article is very interesting as a top of this. And this newspaper, by the way, this is very important propagandist newspaper. It existed from Soviet time. And the name, which you mentioned, Moskovsky Komsomolets, we could translate it like Moscow Boy Scout. Moscow Boy Scout
Boy Scout,
newspaper, yeah. Moscow Boy Scout, yeah. It was the newspaper of young people in Soviet time, of young Soviet Boy Scouts. And now it saved the same name. With the same name, it also oriented to more young population than old population. And this article, when I read it today, I read it from the beginning till the end, twice or three times, because I couldn't believe that I see that in official Russian newspaper. And it starts from headline like it is better to lose the war than to win, because for Russians usually it is better to lose the war, because after they lose the war we rebuild our state. And they start the excursion to the very, very deep history of Russia, of Russian territory, not Russian state, because Russian state is very young, but for Russian territory. And they mention, for example, the war of 800 years ago with Gold Order, with Chinese and Mongolian forces, and Russia lost this war. And they say in this official propaganda newspaper, that time, 800 years ago, Russia was very bad state, bad ruled. So it is good that Mongolians and Chinese, they became to be rulers of Russia, and they helped us to rebuild our country. And the same they publish in this article about, for example, the war against Sweden. Then Sweden won a war against Russia, and Sweden took all the Baltic Sea shore from Russia. So it was good news, because after this, Russia rebuilt itself during 100 years. And after 100 years, they were the very strong country under the rule of Peter the Great. And the same examples. And the last examples is Crimea War, by the way. Crimea War from 19th century. Then also Russia lost the war to France and England. And when they lost this war, they were banned to have a navy, a military fleet on the Black Sea. It was also good news. Yeah, they said that it was also good period in Russian history. So they also bring, by the way, they bring poetry as an argument in this article. They bring the poetry of Russian classic poet Sergei Yesenin. They found the poetry about how to lose war is better than to win a war. So they try to persuade the reader that now the good news will be to capitulate to Ukraine, to say that we will not have any fleet on Black Sea or something like that. Looks like that, yeah. And they make the final line is about that the good step now is to lose the war. That is phenomenal. This is like a new program of Russian opposition. But the main point, this is the inner country opposition, not outside opposition like from Lithuania or from Berlin. The liberals have liberal parties. They have their headquarters in exile. But this is the real, let's say, deep state opposition to the not deep state.
I think the more I hear about disappointment or annoyance in Moscow, the more it's pleasant to me. Probably you've heard that there was one man today. I haven't prepared the video, but I'm going to paraphrase it. So he's just left Moscow maybe days ago, and he's somewhere in Europe, and he's recording videos saying, "Oh God, just bomb Moscow." He was appealing to Ukrainians, I would say, not to Russians. So he was appealing to Ukrainians and to the world, saying, just bomb Moscow, just do whatever. I'm just sick and tired. That's an interesting. I don't care about Russians, but still, maybe that's a good narrative that we see right now.
Well, people like that, like this guy you mentioned, we see a lot of people like that, really. I receive a lot of letters, for example, from Russian citizens, from Moscow citizens who ask us to strike Moscow. So that is normal. This is liberal opposition. But liberal opposition, they have their leaders in exile or in jail. They don't have any leaders who are free and inside Russian Federation. These liberal guys and girls, they sit in Russia and they want changes in Russia, and they believe that only Ukrainian military victory or Ukrainian occupation could change the Russia. So they have these people from the first day of the war, and the number of these people, I can't count them, but obviously this is millions of people. But they are not political force. What is important? They are civil society, but not political force. They don't have any organization. They don't have any possibility to demonstrate their will inside Russian Federation, to organize any protest. They don't have any chance, really. They don't have any chance because the suppression from the regime. But the new trend is the opposition inside Russian Federation, and the opposition which comes from Kremlin de facto. This is part of Kremlin officials. They are now in opposition to Mr. Putin. Look, we could compare it to Iranian situation, for example. Yes, in Iran we have 30% or 50% of protesters who want to remove the regime of Ayatollahs. But they don't have any tools to that. They don't have weapon. They don't have political parties or something. And they can't to remove the regime. But another idea is to remove, for example, Ayatollah by the former President Pezeshkian. We, all of us, I believe, read this idea in New York Times, and New York Times stated that that was the initial plan of Israel and the United States. So now in Russia, they have the natural idea of that. So not brought from abroad, but inside Russia. Russia also has a huge problem during almost 5 years of the full-scale war, and have a lot of problem in economy, and with another limitation of moving people to abroad, etc., etc. So it boiled inside Russian Federation, and now it is ready to explode all of this tension inside Russian elites. We are speaking now about Russian elites. This newspaper, you can't send the letter to newspaper and they will not publish your letter. You can't, if you are a journalist, you can't just write the article and to send it to the newspaper Moscow Boy Scout. No, you should be official worker of something like proxy Kremlin organization to publish any article in this newspaper. So this is very important signal from Russian elites that they are ready to lose this war.
I would like to discuss another signals from Europe, Michael. The EU top diplomat Kaja Kallas, as it was predicted, said that European Union cannot act as a neutral mediator in possible talks between Ukraine and Russia because the EU is clearly pro-Ukrainian. But why then they suggested all this line of people that we have heard during the last weeks, I would say. Angela Merkel, Juncker, Schröder, who else? I mean, Kaja Kallas was also, Alexander Stubb, we discussed him before. So, I mean, that was a huge list of people. And now we hear this one. What is your take on that?
We never heard official candidate for a head of negotiation group against Russia. Never. We heard that there are conversations inside European Union, I mean inside European Commission and inside the diplomatic head of diplomatic of this, and also on the meeting of foreign minister of European Union. Yeah, we discussed who could be the negotiation group with Russian Federation. This process started last autumn when President Macron, president of France, offered to start the direct negotiation with Russian Federation, but this offer of Macron, it was in absolutely different atmosphere and absolutely different surrounding than we have now. Macron offered that as an opposition to American negotiation group. He said, now Americans, they opened this negotiation track, and to sit aside and just to wait for the American result, it is not responsible for European Union. And he was right, absolutely right at this moment, at this very clear and certain moment. It was October, November 2025. But now, in May 2026, the situation absolutely changed. Americans, they stopped their negotiation process officially. Marco Rubio said, no, we are withdrawing our negotiation group. We are not ready to continue the negotiation. So now, to start negotiation by European Union, it is nonsense, absolute nonsense. And Europeans understood that. And the same Alexander Stubb, president of Finland, who just a couple of weeks ago said that he is ready to negotiate against President Putin. He said on Sunday on Finnish not Finnish, but Finland, I mean Finland TV station, this is Finnish TV, yeah. On Finnish TV, he said that he is ready to negotiate with Putin, but only after ceasefire. He's not ready to negotiate now. When Russia stopped the fire, then he is ready to negotiate peace process. And yesterday, it started a couple of days ago, and today we received it officially from European Union, that European Union stopped conversation, in inner conversation, I mean, about who could represent European Union in the negotiation against Russians. And they stopped because they don't believe that Russian Federation is ready to the peace process. And now it is the official position of European Union. They don't looking for any candidate to negotiate with Russians. This is, I believe that Russians, they're very, very disappointed with that. Russians now, they are looking for Americans or for Europeans, for somebody to negotiate, because otherwise, Russians, they look again like only aggressors and not the peace leaders or something. And now it is very clear that Russians only in war and not in war and negotiation simultaneously.
Michael, my last question is that after Putin's recent strange and visibly weak public appearance, when he was screaming "Ura, ura, ura," everybody heard that probably. Many people are no longer discussing only his physical condition, but also his mental state. Of course, he has changed after more than 2 decades in power. But what is the real danger for Ukraine if Putin is not only, this ruthless killer and paranoid, but increasingly irrational?
I believe this is the only good news, because my belief now that after the Ukrainian military forces, the next force who could remove Putin is Russian pro-military elites. I mean, it could be Russian oligarchs, it could be Russian special security forces, for example. It could be former or current workers of his own administration. And for us, it is not important who exactly will remove Putin. It is absolutely not important, because every new leader of Russian Federation will start from negotiating with European Union and United States about peace process. Nobody in Russia, except Putin, has any mandate to continue this war. Just nobody. The only mandate of continuation of war, Mr. Putin's mandate, is based on 26 years, and he is the ruler of Russian Federation. So to remove Putin, it is the same day or the same month, let's say, the war will stop. And this is good news for us. And if he got crazy, so I believe that people around him will remove him. By the way, it is the permanent history of Russian Federation. They started from discussion about this article in Moscow Boy Scout. Then they recollect, let's say, the history of Russian wars, but also we could recollect the history of Russian Tsar Paul the First, for example, was removed by his surrounding people. Then he got crazy. They decided that he got crazy, and they just killed him. One day they just killed him. The same happened with Nicholas II, who was removed in February 1917. Then they decided that he is not got crazy exactly, but he, let's say, mentally weak, let's say. And they also, the people who was surrounded, he was surrounded by them, they just removed him on one day. So I believe, the most believe in the same scenario with, also we could mention Mr. Khrushchev, the famous guy who is very believed by Elon Musk. Elon Musk mentioned Khrushchev in his social network. And also Mr. Khrushchev was removed by his own friends when they decided that he got crazy. Yeah, so this is good tradition in Russia.
Michael, I hope that before he's going to be removed in one day and go insane completely, he will not press the button, the red button, before he already cuckoo.
Maybe it does not depend on us, so we should be.
Well, yeah, makes sense.
We shouldn't be nervous about this. It does not depend.
Yeah,
on
we cannot affect that. At this point, Michael, thank you so much for your time. See you next week, and Slava Ukraini.
Yeah. Героям слава! Thank you, Natalie.